All right, we are live on the inaugural Talking Soup, excuse me, and the Frying Pan #1 podcast. My name is Rowan Kane. I'm here with Louis Rive. How are you today, Louis?
Rowan, I'm great. I'm absolutely great. I unfortunately had to turn the air conditioner off in order to hear you, but apart from that, I'm fantastic. How are you?
I'm doing well. I have the air conditioner on. It's nice and quiet and increasingly cold in this room, in my little jail cell here. So we've done a podcast in the past. It was called the Volterra Podcast. That was based off my still on hiatus website. We are rebranding ourselves, and we're provisionally attaching ourselves to your much more successful magazine, Talking Soup, which we'll get to a little bit later. But the whole rebranding around this podcast is expats. We've both moved abroad to relatively far-flung places and isolated places, I guess you could say. So, Louis, where the hell are you? Why are you there? And why is this podcast called The Frying Pan?
Well, Rowan, I'll start with the frying pan is a good place to start. The frying pan came about from the local area that I live in, which is in southern Andalusia. This particular county is known as the Frying Pan in Spanish. That's available on the bilingual version of the podcast, which will be coming soon, but at the moment, only in English. So this area is known as the Frying Pan because it never rains and it's really, really fucking hot. All the time, basically, from March until October, it is unpleasantly hot. And right now is it's hard to explain. We are out of the heat and into the frying pan, so to speak. It is incredibly hot, and that is why we're calling it the Frying Pan. Also, as you know, I run the magazine Talking Soup, and it was a nice culinary sort of continuation in terms of a pun. But yeah, I'm in southern Spain. I'm not entirely sure why, but ostensibly I am an English teacher at the moment, spreading the Saxon tongue like many, many, many bored middle-class kids have done before me. So, Rowan, where are you, and why are you there?
I am in Sanur, which is a part of Denpasar, which is the capital city of Bali, which is one of the 17,000 islands that make up the archipelagic Republic of Indonesia. I am here because, my girlfriend's Indonesian, and I finished my last job in Connecticut, where I'm from, beginning of November last year. Took a little bit of time off, and my girlfriend had said, Rowan, I'm moving back to Indonesia, I'm moving back home. You can come with me if you want. And since my job was finishing, I said, okay. So mid-January or so, about the same time I think you moved to Spain, I packed up all my shit or most of my shit, at least my clothes, my warm weather clothes, and moved to another very fucking hot place, it's really hot here. I moved right in the middle of the rainy season, which is also the hot season. It was uncomfortably cold. I didn't stop sweating for a good 3 or 4 months. But yeah, I'm living here, doing a lot of writing, doing a lot more writing, and yeah. So why did you go to Spain as opposed to, I think you were living in London, right? Why did you go to Spain as opposed to staying there?
Well, I mean, cut a pretty long story short, I fucking hated London, and it had become immeasurably depressing. Spain, there is no special reason why I'm here, actually. But in the grand industry that is teaching English around the world, which is I would say, multi-million-dollar industry, the first people that offered me a job was actually a small town in Spain. And well, in London, everything had kind of come to a head, and I was definitely not going to live there any longer without going insane. If you are interested in my experiences from London, they are very well documented both on Vice magazine and also on my website, talkingsoup.com, where you can search for Lawrence Rivers, my pseudonym, and you can read the never-ending drudgery of the world of work that I worked in London for three years, really. So I found myself at a juncture, really, where not only was I kind of sick of London, but also of most of the UK. And the idea of moving back to Scotland, my home city, Edinburgh, was also quite a depressing prospect. Therefore, I put the feelers out in a non-creepy way, and sort of saw what came back in. And the first one that came was this, which is a very small place in the middle of Andalusia, a small town of 5,000 people. So really the polar opposite of London. And I thought, you know what? Why not? I'll give it a go. I speak no Spanish. Well, now I do, but then nothing. And I made the leap. And now I have been living in Spain for the best part of 1 year. So to sum up, really, Britain is occasionally very depressing and expensive. Spain is quite uplifting and very cheap, especially for beer, which I love. So that really sums up my situation, so to speak. I guess I stayed within Europe, so that was something. It's relatively close to home, to all intents and purposes, which is kind of the opposite of you, Rowan. You are the other side of the world, really proper master and commander, the far side. Tell me, what were you doing before that led you to this posting in Indonesia?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I want to tip of the hat to the Patrick O'Brian series, of which I've read all 20 books and have watched the movie 4 or 5 times. I'm going to riff off your question a little bit and just kind of say how different the other side of the world is. You can move, and I think you've had this experience as well. You're shocked. Culture shock is a real thing, and I had never experienced culture shock before. Living in Scotland, which is easy for an American, especially when there's Americans all around you, wasn't that difficult. Living in the Netherlands, again, it's not that different from Scotland, and Europe is a pretty easy kind of, or at least Northern Europe is a pretty easy, it's easy to segue from one kind of country to the other. But moving to Indonesia, it's a whole other kettle of fish. It's a horse of a different color, overused cliche you wanna pick. There were a lot of adjustments, not to mention I've already mentioned the heat, but being able to understand absolutely nothing of the language to begin with. Again, like yourself, I've learned a good bit. I think you're more fluent in Spanish than I am in Bahasa Indonesia, which is the lingua franca of the archipelago. But it was very different. Adjusting to the food, I'm still adjusting to the food. I lost about 15 pounds since I've been here, and I didn't have 15 pounds to lose. So eating rice and chicken and fish and vegetables is by all means good and healthy, but especially when they throw in a bunch of chili sauce called sambal here, it tends to do things to you that that aren't always pleasant. Which kind of brings me to a question for you, Lou. Have you missed home? Have you missed Edinburgh? You said you didn't want to move back to Edinburgh, but have you missed Bonnie, Scotland?
Absolutely. I'm loath to admit it, but I have to a very large extent. There's a terrible trait amongst Scottish expats in particular of the hasty back attitude, which does pervade kind of everything we do. It came to a nadir of homesickness 2 months ago, where I contacted a canned haggis company in order to try and have some haggis shipped to me in rural Spain. They have yet to respond to my cry for help. But there are certainly aspects of Scotland that I really miss. Scottish people love to complain, as you well know, and I'm aware of the irony of complaining about complaining. But when I lived in Scotland, I complained about how crap Scotland was a lot, especially the weather. But it has now not rained since April. So what I would give to not be drenched completely, but there was the kind of all-pervading weather of Eastern Scotland, of everything being just completely wet all the time, no matter where you went, when you went out, when you went anywhere, even indoors. For some reason, everything was ridiculously damp. Here is the polar opposite of that. Everything is incredibly, incredibly dry. And what I would give for just to feel cold would be fantastic. Just feeling cold is something I crave more than anything else in the world. I have not felt cold since April, really, and that was because my shower was still cold. After 3 months, having the water tanks on the roof here in 40-degree heat, my cold shower is now hotter than I would normally have a shower. So I face this dilemma every day. Also, I think something can be made of the fact that the temperature here is consistently average above human body temperature. So going a little bit stir crazy is something that is very prevalent amongst the expat community in this town, which is me, I might add. But yeah, I do miss Scotland. There are many aspects of Scotland that I do miss, and ironically, the weather and the food are the two biggest ones there. How about yourself for America? I mean, Americans, obviously, it is a big country. Obviously, it's a very multicultural country too, but America is quite removed from anywhere, really, apart from America. So moving to Indonesia, I can only imagine is, again, a big culture shock for you. So are you missing the States? Are you missing Holland? Are you missing Scotland?
I am missing, believe it or not, Scotland almost more than, and I would say actually I'm missing Scotland the most, which was an interesting revelation for me. And I only realized it last week. I was in Scotland for 5 days and realized how much I was actually missing it. Like yourself, I am yearning to be cold. So the first couple weeks I got here, again, it was the rainy season. It was really hot, and I was in Jakarta, which is a terrible, terrible place. And I'm sure we'll talk about that at some point in one of these podcasts. Jakarta is an awful, awful place. There are redeeming qualities, but it's not a place you want to live. So, and this was in the middle of winter back home in the States in Scotland. So it was middle of January, beginning of February. And more than once, I turned the air conditioner up all the way and stood under it with my shirt off in an attempt to get cold, and it was literally going crazy. Like I was on the verge of losing my mind. This is, and it's funny, these parallels. This is also, I didn't have hot water in my apartment in Jakarta. They build these apartment buildings as like bare bones. There's no wires in the walls, so you can't have Wi-Fi. And there's no hot water heaters. You have to install the hot water heater out. So they just basically build like boxes and move people in. And this is like a middle class apartment building. But so I didn't have hot water in the shower. So I was going in the shower like lukewarm, because it doesn't ever get hot. It's an apartment building, so it's never hot. But it was a lukewarm shower, and then getting out and trying to get up myself under a air conditioner to try and feel cold, and I still wasn't feeling cold. It was depressing. It like, talk about London depressing. This was depressing. But I've gotten used to it. It's summertime now. My body is adjusting to the summer, and it's actually, the weather's turned a little bit here. It's breezy. I'm wearing a long sleeve shirt because it's actually windy out, and it's kind of nice. But so Lou, is there, what kind of food, you said you're missing food, and you said you're missing haggis specifically. I didn't answer your question about America, and I can come back to that if you want to repeat it. But you say you're missing food, but just haggis, or are you talking English breakfast, or excuse me, Scottish breakfast, or are you talking like just a nice burger? What are you eating in Spain that is making you miss Scottish food?
There are many aspects of the rich culinary history of Scotland that I do miss. Haggis is one of the big ones. I also very much miss Greggs the baker, as being the budget chain of bakers throughout Britain, which is definitely my favorite of all the chains. Here, it doesn't really exist. Spanish food is surprisingly very ill-suited to their climate. I don't understand how their cuisine evolved this way if the weather was always like this. But they're big fans of mayonnaise on a lot of things. Lots of mayonnaise and artificial cheese are two of the mainstays of Spanish cuisine, especially in Andalusia. And as I say, it's been 40 degrees now for longer than I can remember. And even if I could remember, my brain has been reduced to such mush by the heat that I wouldn't be able to. But yeah, it is 40 degrees has been 40 degrees for a long time, and the food often is very hearty potato salads dripping in mayonnaise and with knockoff seafood incorporated into it. And it's if you could encapsulate the opposite of what you want in this weather, it is that. They have plenty of good food as well, like nice kind of cuts of meat which are just fried, which is fine. But they do love sauce here. They really love all varieties of sauces. The heavier the better, the kind of heartier the better. And it makes zero sense in this weather when it's hard enough to eat anyway. So this, I guess this has resulted in some longing for Scottish cuisine. And you mentioned full English breakfasts as well, which does bring me on to an interesting point, that Spanish meals and meal times are very far removed from British ones. And the idea of having what is a very strange breakfast to them and a delicious one for me, of bacon and eggs, sausages which are 40% bread, the best, and baked beans. They don't understand. You might as well be speaking Chinese to them. They just wouldn't understand why you'd eat that at all, let alone in the morning. So those are the kind of things that I have missed in general, really. But I'm very interested by your culinary situation as well, because Spain has similarities. It's European food. with, I guess, with some African influences in it, but fundamentally it's coming from the same root. Indonesia, you are pretty far removed from any kind of Western food. How have you been coping with the? I mean, you mentioned you lost a lot of weight. Good thing, bad thing? You enjoying the food there?
It's been an adjustment, but the food on the whole is delicious. It's just, it doesn't fill you up. So an hour after you eat a meal, you're hungry again, you're starving. Fortunately, so I'll come back to Indonesian food in a second. Fortunately, I'm living right now in an area has a heavy tourist presence, we'll put it that way. So there are a considerable number of Italian restaurants and Western restaurants and down the line. But so Indonesian food is, I guess it's well suited to the climate, unlike Andalusian food. But it's spicy. Almost everything is spicy, which is, I guess, is a hot climate. Like Mexican food is spicy. Mexican climate is, I guess, hot. Thai food is really spicy. Indian food is really spicy. These are all hot places, and their food's spicy as well. I guess there's some correlation, but when you're sweating over a meal, like dripping sweat over a meal because it's so spicy and it's also 90 degrees out, 35 degrees out, whatever system you use, it's not the most comfortable thing in the world. But yeah, they also have a lot of soups here, which I find confusing, because the last thing I want when it's 90 degrees out is like a nice hot bowl of spicy soup. Hardiness aside, soup just is not a great hot weather meal. But other than that, it's different for sure, but very delicious. A lot of rice with every meal. I like to have breakfast. I think like yourself, I like breakfast food for breakfast. My first meal has to be breakfast, like cooked like a cake or a pastry or a yogurt or a fruit or something like that. And if you're an Indonesian, whatever, if you're having an Indonesian meal for breakfast, it's going to be rice and chicken and fish, and just not something I really want for breakfast. So I think we'll do one, just a couple more questions each to kind of wrap this up. And yeah, this was something we mentioned in the pre-show. I think we're both maybe not trying to escape, maybe not trying to avoid is the right word, but we don't see ourselves as part of the kind of well, I think the term used was the city world in reference to London City, the banker kind of corporate lifestyle that many of our friends and close friends and acquaintances and classmates at our esteemed alma mater, University of St. Andrews, the lifestyle they've chosen, which is not to cry or to kind of defame them in any way or their chosen lifestyle, but for us it's not really a thing. Do you want to go into that at all? Do you want to talk about how you feel about the city world as you put it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can make it fairly brief that that lifestyle to me is shite. And as a pessimist the whole way, I think my current lifestyle is okay, actually. Life is a constant battle to kind of make things a bit less shite. And I have made things slightly less shite by not following the path of working 80 hours a week and doing lots of cocaine on the weekend with a bunch of guys from suburban London. I have, ever since, in the grand scheme of things, life is not too shite. That is what I would sum up the situation, really. City world, shite. Now, less shite. Maybe in the future, who knows? I won't jinx anything. But yourself, Rowan, do you see yourself in 5 years moving back, doing Wall Street?
Certainly not Wall Street. Certainly not working for a corporation of some sort. I'm getting more and more acclimatized to this writer lifestyle where I can kind of set my own hours and hopefully I'm good enough to make something of it. We'll see. Maybe podcasting is the thing. Probably not for me. Yeah. I mean, it's not for me. I don't mind working for other people or working with other people, but working in a massive machine that doesn't really care about who I am or what I have to offer is not something that I'm interested in. For frying pan number one.
No, I think we've set the scene very well. We hope to make this a weekly podcast, and we will. Yeah, if you like listening, please tune in again next week. Get in touch with us. You can get in touch with me via talkingsoup.com or via the Twitter, which is Talking Soup Magazine. And you, Rowan?
Yeah, I have a weekly blog called Semalong Stories. Semalong is the neighborhood that I live in. We'll get into that at some point later. It's semalongstories.wordpress.com. I'm at RLM Kane, Kane, on Twitter. Yeah, we'll have this up on iTunes as soon as possible. We'll have this up on YouTube. We'll be sharing our links. Share it. Give us a review. Tell us what you think. It will only go uphill from here. I promise that we are setting a very low bar with this episode. So we'll ever highward. We're always looking to improve. But yeah, we'll maybe set up a website for this blog for the frying pan as well. And yeah, tune in next week. Good talking to you, Louis.
Always a pleasure, Rowan. Keep cool.
See you next week.